everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my March reads. I'm basically just going to be recommending to you guys a few of my favorite books that I read in this month. So yeah, I thought why not? I feel like everyone has a lot of time on their hands now, and so why not pick up a good book? So I'm gonna just get on and start with it without rambling too much. So if you guys want to see some of my favorite books that I read in this month, just keep watching. Okay guys, so I'm going to go ahead and begin. I have a list right here of all of the books that I'm going to be talking about in this video, and I have a few notes, so that's why I'm going to be looking down. If you happen to see me glance down, that's why I have that there. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and begin. So the first book that I'm going to talk about is basically kind of a part of a series, and I've read all of the books in this series, but I'm just going to talk about the one that I particularly liked the most. I did like the series overall. They're not like they're connected, but they're not like they can be read as standalone. So it's the Cloverleaf Farms series, and there's 4 books in the series, and it basically is surrounded around it's surrounded the stories are surrounded by around by sisters, 4 sisters, and each book is about each sister's love story. And so my favorite personally was Unbreakable, and that was Sylvia's story, and she's the oldest sister, and basically her story is kind of like she's just got out of her marriage because her husband was cheating on her and he's left her for another woman, and so she has packed up and she's moved to basically back home to her parents, and she's taken her children, and she's now back home, and she's kind of coping from her marriage and being cheated on and being kind of thrown away, as she described it in the book. She is When she gets to the farm, she then sees or meets Henry, who himself has been just has just left a relationship as well, and so they kind of meet and kind of help each other heal in a way. And yeah, so I don't want to go too much into detail because I think it's worth a read, but I personally liked Unbreakable the best. However, there are 4 books, like I said, and the other ones are Irresistible, Undeniable, Insatiable, I believe, and then Unbreakable. I will put all of the covers here so you guys can check it out for yourself, but yeah, Unbreakable was my favorite. Moving right along, the next one that I read was Welcome to the Dark Side, and it basically, so this book is, just a quick warning, this is a age gap book, and so there's a large age gap, and if that makes you uncomfortable, this is probably not the book that you would want to pick up, but I personally really love the story, and the reason why I actually picked it up is because it was recommended a few times to me, so I went ahead and picked it up, like I bought it and read it on my tablet, but I really enjoyed it. So this story, I'm not going to get too much into it, like I think it's worth a read, but again, it revolves a guy named Zeus and a girl named Louise, but I think they gave her the nickname Lulu, if I'm correct. I'm trying to, I read this one a little earlier in the month, so I'm kind of foggy on the names and stuff, but this one is an age gap, like I said, I believe it's like 19 or 20 years, and she is basically, it starts off with her really young, and she's actually diagnosed with cancer, and she gets really sick, and Zeus and her meet because he ends up saving her, and without telling you too much, they end up becoming friends, and kind of, it starts out like she's really young, like a child, and he's basically known her this entire time. He ends up getting sent away to jail, and they end up writing letters to one another, and she kind of sees him as, like, in the beginning, like, because she's a child, obviously, she sees him as a, like, just kind of her hero, someone that saved her life, and then as she's going through her treatment and everything, he's in jail, so they end up writing letters back and forth. He's checking up on her with her, like, prognosis and, like, everything that's happening with her health, and they keep this relationship going until he's released, and by the time he's released, she's like, I think she's like 18, I think, but there is like a 20-year age gap, and because he's known her when she was a child, that might make people uncomfortable, so I don't know if this is the book for everyone, but because a romantic relationship does happen, and but yeah, I quite enjoyed the book, and I think it was very, very sweet. So if you guys want to check that out, that's also a recommendation. I believe it's written by Gina Darling. Yeah, but I will leave it here so you guys can see everything. The next one is called Fallen Sun, and basically the Welcome to the Dark Side is basically a part of the Fallen Sun series, and Fallen Sun is kind of a continuation of Zeus and Lulu's story a little bit. It's not too long. It's a really short, like, kind of continuation just to that adds something to the story. I read that also, and so if you guys want to check that out, I'll leave. It doesn't really. I'll find the cover and I'll put it up here so you guys can check that out. The next one that I read was actually also another age gap. I've been kind of like stayed on that trend of age gap stories. So the next one is Torn. This one was also recommended to me. Like, I really, really like this one too. It's basically the same idea with older, younger, except this one, same idea in the sense of like the guy is the older one and he's known the girl for a long time. Torn is the guy. I don't remember the girl's name, but he's known her for basically like her whole life. He's best friends with her father, and he's basically known her since she's a baby, and he's been kind of like that person that's been in her life forever. He's babysat her, taken care of her, changed her diapers. Again, this is another thing, like, it might make you uncomfortable, so this might not be something you might want to read. So again, a warning just in case, but if you guys are okay with, if you're okay with stories like in that kind of frame, then this is probably something you might want to check out if you haven't already read it. So again, like I was saying, he's been in her life her whole life, and he's really good friends with her father, and he's basically been known as Uncle Torin this entire time until, feelings start developing when she becomes, an adult. She's 18. I believe there's a 15-year age gap. But yeah, I believe like when she gets, her feelings start changing and developing into something else, but throughout the story he keeps pushing her away because he feels it's completely wrong. And so that's kind of the story. I personally really liked it, if you guys want to check it out. Yeah, so the next one after that is also in the same series. It's called Tide, and it's actually it's also another age gap, but it's not. Yeah, it's also another age gap, but it's actually Torin's brother. So Torin Grace, and then it's Tyler Grace. So the second one's Tyler Grace, and it's basically like a completely different story in this sense. Tyler doesn't know. Again, I don't remember the girl's name. But with this story, it's completely different. It's the girl in the story was actually kidnapped at a young age, and she was abused. Again, if you have any you feel uncomfortable with sexual assault or any kind of like again, age gap relationships, this is probably not for you again. But yeah, so the girl is basically, she's been kidnapped when she was really young and abused horribly, and Tyler is the one who ends up actually finding her, because I'm not going to give too much away, but he ends up finding her, and he ends up rescuing her, but he ends up, yeah, so time passes, a year passes, and she's now kind of settled in with her family, and she's kind of trying to find her way and trying to find where she belongs. And she's also trying to remember, or trying to find the person that saved her, and that's Tyler. But everyone in the town is kind of like doesn't like Tyler because he's kind of awkward, and he has like scars and burns all over him, and people kind of see him as like the town's monster who lives in the forest. I don't want to get too much into it, but it is worth a read. I really liked it, so if you want to check that out, that's also another recommendation that I have. The next one that I want to talk about is called The Best Man, and this one is by Winter Renshaw, I believe. Winter Renshaw is the author. This is my first book by this author. I kind of came across this. I don't know how I came across this book. I just came across it and I picked it up, and it is basically, this is not an age gap story. This is just a story about a girl named Bree and a guy named Kanan, I believe, if I remember correctly. And what happens is he gets into an accident. Kanan, I'm just gonna call him Kane. Kane gets into an accident and he basically wakes up in the hospital. But when he was in the hospital, he had a dream that he was, married and had a wife and kids. And he wakes up in the hospital asking for his wife. Lo and behold, he's not married at all or doesn't have any kids. And so now he's just kind of, after the accident, the story goes on with him trying to kind of decode this memory or this thing that felt so vivid and so real. And he ends up, time goes by and he ends up finding out that his best friend is the woman that was in his dream, that was his wife, is actually the woman that his best friend is about to marry. And so there's a whole lot of drama with that and a whole lot of stuff with that. So that's kind of the story. I really enjoyed the book, so I thought, why not give it a recommend to you guys. But yeah. So then the last two books are basically kind of like a part 1 and part 2. The first one is called Say Yes. Oh no. The first one is called Hush Hush, and then the second one is called Say Yes Hush Hush, and it follows a story. Follows a girl named Aubrey, and she's basically a college student, and she's always struggled growing up. She doesn't have, her parents had passed away when she was really young, and she was raised by her grandmother, and she lives with her best friend who is rich but is kind of on the outs with her parents, so she makes her money in other ways. And when Aubrey comes to a point where she's kind of fed up with her employer and tired of it, her friend recommends that she start being an escort because the money is so, I guess, great, and she makes a lot of money. So she ends up becoming an escort, and things get really dramatic. I don't want to give too much away, but she does end up meeting a guy named James, and they end up having a connection. And but James is also, later on she finds out James is also linked to her life in another way. So I don't want to give that away. I want you guys to read it and try it and see if you like it. I will leave the covers here for you guys to check out and see if it sparks anything. I don't know, maybe a good cover sometimes sparks interest. But yeah, that is pretty much my list for March. If you guys like any of these books, let me know in the comments. If you have already read any of these books and like them already, let me know in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!